The morning Lily Winters discovered her entire stock of horses missing from the corrals behind her trading post. She didn't scream or cry, but instead loaded her Winchester rifle with hands steady as iron, and vowed that whoever took her livelihood would pay in full measure. The year was 1881, and Platteville, Colorado had grown from a dusty crossroads into a bustling town where cattle drives met mining operations, where honest folk tried to make their way while swindlers and thieves prowled like wolves among sheep. Lily had built her horse trading business from nothing after her father passed 3 years prior, earning respect through fair dealing and an eye for quality horseflesh that few could match. Now someone had stripped her bare in a single night, taking 23 horses that represented every cent she owned and her only means of survival. She stood in the empty corral as dawn light painted the Rocky Mountains gold and red, studying the ground with the tracking skills her father had taught her. Multiple riders, at least 4, maybe 5. They had come in the deepest part of night, cut the fence rails rather than opening gates, and driven her stock northeast toward the open rangeland. The hoofprints told a story of organized theft, not drunken opportunists, but planned robbery. Lily's jaw tightened as she recognized one set of prints, a horse with a distinctive chip in its left front shoe that belonged to Wade Sullivan, a man who had tried to buy her out twice in the past year with offers that were barely disguised threats. "Miss Winters." The voice came from behind her, deep and concerned. She turned to find Harrison Fletcher standing at the fence line, his tall frame silhouetted against the rising sun. Harrison was a cowboy who had drifted into Platteville 2 months earlier, taking work at the McAllister Ranch just south of town. Lily had seen him around, noticed the respectful way he tipped his hat to ladies, and how he seemed to carry himself with quiet competence. He was somewhere in his mid-20s, she guessed, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of sage that seemed to miss nothing. "They took everything," Lily said flatly, refusing to let her voice shake. "Every horse I owned." Harrison climbed through the fence and walked the corral perimeter, examining what she had already seen. His movements were economical, purposeful. "Sullivan's crew," he said after a moment. "I recognized 2 of these horses from town. They were at the saloon last night, drinking heavy and talking about easy money." "You know them?" Lily asked, hope sparking despite herself. "Not personally, but I've seen them operating. They have been running a scheme through 3 counties, stealing stock and selling it across state lines before anyone can prove ownership." Harrison looked at her directly, and she saw something in his expression that was both sympathetic and resolute. "They'll be moving fast, trying to get your horses into Wyoming before noon. After that, the trail gets a lot harder to follow." Lily checked her rifle again. "Then I had better get moving." "Hold on." Harrison raised a hand. "You cannot just ride out alone after 5 armed men. That is suicide, not justice." "Then what do you suggest?" "Wait for the sheriff." Lily's laugh was bitter. "Sheriff Dawson is Wade Sullivan's cousin. He will take a report and do nothing while my horses disappear forever." Harrison was quiet for a moment, clearly weighing something in his mind. Then he nodded slowly. "Give me 10 minutes to get my horse and gear from the ranch. I will help you track them down and get your stock back." Lily studied him, suspicious despite her desperation. "Why would you do that? You do not even know me." "Because it is the right thing to do," Harrison said simply. "And because I have seen too many good people get pushed around by men like Sullivan. Sometimes you have to stand up, or the whole world turns crooked." He met her eyes. "Besides, I am pretty handy at tracking, and you will need someone watching your back." Something in his straightforward manner convinced her. Lily nodded. 10 minutes. I will pack supplies and saddle my riding horse. They left me that much at least." Harrison was back in 8 minutes, riding a solid bay gelding and leading a pack horse. Lily had her buckskin mare ready, saddlebags loaded with jerky, hardtack, ammunition, and canteens. She had changed into riding trousers and a sturdy jacket, her long auburn hair braided tight and pinned up under her hat. Harrison noted her preparations with approval. "You have done this before," he observed. "My father used to take me on buying trips all through the territory," Lily explained, swinging into her saddle with practiced ease. "I can track, shoot, and camp as well as any man." "I do not doubt it," Harrison said, and she heard no condescension in his tone, only respect. "Let us go get your horses back." They rode out following the trail northeast, moving at a steady pace that ate up ground without exhausting their mounts. The tracks were clear in the soft earth, 23 horses driven by 5 riders who made no attempt to hide their passage. That arrogance told Lily everything she needed to know about how protected Sullivan's crew felt. They believed themselves untouchable. "Tell me about Sullivan," Harrison said as they rode. "How long has he been trying to push you out?" Lily kept her eyes on the trail but answered readily. "Started about a year ago. He owns the freight company and the livery stable in town, wants to control all the horse trade in the county. My prices are better and my stock is higher quality, so people come to me instead. That eats into his profits." She paused. "First he tried to court me, thinking he could get my business through marriage. When I made it clear I was not interested, he switched to intimidation. Small things at first, spreading rumors, sending men to bother my customers. I thought I could outlast him. But he escalated," Harrison said. "He escalated," Lily confirmed grimly. "This is not just about horses anymore. This is about power. If he can steal everything I have and face no consequences, no one else in the county will dare stand up to him." Harrison nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we make sure there are consequences." They rode in companionable silence for a while, covering miles of rolling grassland dotted with juniper and sage. The day grew warm, and mountains loomed to the west like sleeping giants. Lily found herself watching Harrison from the corner of her eye, noting how naturally he sat his horse, how his gaze constantly swept their surroundings with the vigilance of someone who had learned to spot trouble before it arrived. She wondered about his story, what had brought him to Colorado, why a man with his obvious skills was working as a ranch hand for $30 a month. As if sensing her thoughts, Harrison spoke. "I came out from Kansas," he offered without being asked. "Family farm went under after the grasshopper plague of '74. Lost my parents to fever the next winter. I was 19, had nothing but a horse and my father's rifle, so I started drifting. Worked ranches, did some guiding, spent a season hunting buffalo before the herds were gone." His voice carried old grief worn smooth by time. "Been moving ever since, I suppose, looking for a place that felt like home." "And Platteville?" Lily asked. Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Has possibilities," he said finally, and she caught something in his tone that made her pulse quicken inexplicably. By mid-morning they reached the point where the trail crossed into rougher country, broken land cut by arroyos and ridges. The thieves had pushed the horses hard here, and Harrison pointed out where several animals had stumbled, leaving deeper prints. "They are not taking care of them," he said with disapproval. "Just running them into the ground to make distance. Some of these horses will be lame by the time they stop." Anger flared hot in Lily's chest. Those horses were not just her property. They were animals she had raised and trained, creatures she cared for. The thought of them being abused and sold to rough handling made her want to put a bullet in Wade Sullivan herself. "How far ahead are they?" she asked. Harrison studied the sun, the temperature of the droppings they passed. 3 hours, maybe less. They will need to rest the horses soon, let them water. There is a creek about 5 miles ahead where the trail crosses. That is where I would stop if I were them." "Then that is where we will catch them," Lily said. They pushed on, caution warring with urgency. As they approached the creek, Harrison signaled for Lily to slow. They dismounted and moved forward on foot, leading their horses quietly through the brush. The sound of water and animal movement reached them first, then voices, male laughter carrying on the afternoon air. Harrison and Lily crept to the top of a ridge and looked down into a natural hollow where the creek pooled. 23 horses stood or grazed, clearly exhausted. 5 men sat around a small fire, passing a bottle. Lily recognized Wade Sullivan immediately, his heavy build and red face distinctive even at a distance. The other 4 were rough-looking characters, hired guns by the way they wore their weapons. 5 against 2, Harrison murmured. "We need to be smart about this." "I am open to suggestions," Lily whispered back. Harrison studied the scene for a long moment. "They are relaxed, think they got away clean. We use that. I will circle around and spook the horses from the far side, stampede them back the way they came. In the confusion, you get above them with your rifle and make sure they do not follow. Do not shoot unless you have to, but make them think you will." "What about you?" Lily asked. "I will be fine," Harrison said with a slight smile. "I have done this sort of thing before." Lily wanted to argue, to insist on a plan that did not split them up, but she recognized sound strategy when she heard it. She nodded reluctantly. "Be careful. You too." Harrison's hand briefly touched her shoulder, warm even through her jacket. Then he was moving, sliding back down the ridge with the silence of an experienced scout. Lily waited, counting her heartbeats, watching the men below. She positioned herself behind a rock outcropping with a clear view of the camp and the trail. Her Winchester felt solid and familiar in her hands. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, suddenly, a sharp whistle cut the air and the horses exploded into motion, running back toward the trail in a thundering mass. The men below jumped up, cursing and scrambling for their mounts. Lily stood, rifle to her shoulder, and fired a shot that kicked up dirt 3 feet in front of Wade Sullivan. "That is far enough," she shouted, her voice carrying clear and hard. "The next one goes through flesh." Sullivan froze, looking up at her with an expression that went from shock to fury. "Lily Winters," he snarled. "You stupid girl, you have no idea what you are doing." "I know exactly what I am doing," Lily called back. "I am recovering stolen property. Those are my horses, and you and your men are going to let them go." One of Sullivan's men made a move toward his gun. Lily shifted her aim and fired, the bullet whining past his ear close enough to make him yelp and raise his hands. "I said do not move. There is only one of you," Sullivan shouted, recovering his bluster. "You cannot shoot all of us." "Maybe not." Harrison's voice came from the opposite side of the hollow. "But between the 2 of us, we will get most of you. Question is, which ones want to die over another man's crime?" Sullivan spun, seeing Harrison now standing with his rifle trained on the group. The hired guns exchanged glances, clearly calculating odds they did not like. These were men who would kill for money, but not men eager to die for Wade Sullivan's pride. "This is not over, Winters," Sullivan raged. "I will have the law on you for this." "Go ahead," Lily said coldly. "Tell your cousin, the sheriff, how you stole my stock and I took it back. I am sure that will make you look real impressive. Or better yet, explain it to Judge Morrison when he comes through next week. I hear he has strong opinions about horse theft." Sullivan's face went redder, but he kept his hands away from his weapon. The standoff held for a long moment, tension crackling in the air. Then one of the hired guns carefully unhitched his gun belt and let it drop. "I am out," he said flatly. "I did not sign on for this kind of trouble." Another followed suit, then a third. Sullivan looked around at his disintegrating crew with impotent fury. "You are all cowards," he spat. "We are alive," one of the men corrected. "There is a difference." Harrison moved closer, still keeping his rifle ready. "Here is how this is going to work. You are going to mount up and ride back to Platteville. You are going to tell anyone who asks that there was a misunderstanding, that Miss Winter's horses wandered off, and you helped return them. You are going to leave her alone from now on, and if anything happens to her or her property, the story of this day is going to spread through every saloon and trading post from here to Kansas. Everyone will know Wade Sullivan as the horse thief who got caught and backed down." "You cannot," Sullivan started. "We can," Harrison said quietly, "and we will. Your choice. Take the embarrassment and walk away, or push this further and face consequences you will not like." For a moment Lily thought Sullivan might be foolish enough to fight. She saw his hand twitch toward his gun, but something in Harrison's eyes, some absolute certainty, made him stop. Sullivan was a bully and a thief, but he was not brave, not when facing someone who would not back down. "This is not finished," Sullivan said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is," Lily said firmly. "It is finished right now." The 5 men mounted up and rode south, casting backward glances but making no further moves. Lily and Harrison waited until they were out of sight before lowering their weapons. The moment the tension broke, Lily felt her knees go weak. She sat down hard on the rock behind her, adrenaline draining away and leaving her shaking. Harrison was beside her in an instant. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," Lily managed. That was intense." "You did great," Harrison said, and the genuine admiration in his voice steadied her. "That was some of the coolest shooting and thinking under pressure I have ever seen." Lily laughed shakily. "I was terrified I would miss and actually hit someone." "But you did not miss," Harrison pointed out. "You put the bullets exactly where you wanted them. That takes real skill." He sat down beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Breathe. The hard part is over." They sat for a few minutes while Lily's heart rate returned to normal. Below them, her horses had stopped running and were drinking from the creek. She counted them automatically, 23, all present and accounted for. Relief washed through her so strongly it was almost painful. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I could not have done this without you." "You would have found a way," Harrison said. "You are tougher than most men I have known, but I am glad I could help." He paused, then added, "It felt good doing the right thing. I have spent a lot of time drifting, taking wages and moving on. This felt like it mattered." Lily looked at him, really looked, seeing past the cowboy exterior to the man beneath. She saw loneliness there and honor, and a kind of weary hope that matched something in her own heart. Without thinking too hard about it, she reached out and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, rough with calluses but gentle. "It mattered," she said. "You mattered." They stayed like that for a moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Harrison cleared his throat and stood, pulling her up with him. "We should get these horses moving. Long drive back to Platteville, and I would rather not be caught out here after dark." Gathering the horses took the rest of the afternoon. Lily and Harrison worked together with easy coordination, rounding up the scattered animals and checking each one for injury. 3 had superficial cuts from being driven through brush, and 1 mare was favoring a foreleg, but nothing was serious. By the time the sun was lowering toward the mountains, they had the herd moving south at a steady pace. They made camp that night in a sheltered hollow with good grass and water. Harrison tended the horses while Lily built a fire and prepared food. The domestic simplicity felt strange and comfortable at the same time. When they finally sat down to eat, the stars were coming out in their thousands, the Milky Way a bright river across the sky. "You ever think about leaving Colorado?" Harrison asked suddenly. Lily considered the question. Used to when I was younger. Thought about San Francisco or Denver, big city lights. But after my father died and I took over the business, I realized this is where I belong. The land gets into your blood out here. Wide spaces, clean air, the way you can see weather coming from 50 miles away. She looked at him. Why do you ask? Harrison poked at the fire with a stick. Just wondering if someone like you ever wanted more than what a town like Platteville can offer. What I want, Lily said carefully, is to build something that lasts. My father started with nothing and built a business that people respected. I want to do the same, prove that a woman can run a trading post as well as any man. That is enough for me, more than enough. That is good, Harrison said softly. That is real good. They talked late into the night, conversation flowing easily now that the crisis had passed. Harrison told her about growing up on the Kansas plains, about his mother's flower garden that somehow bloomed even in the dust, about his father's stories of fighting in the war between the states. Lily shared memories of riding with her father, learning to judge horseflesh by watching Mustang herds in the high country, the satisfaction of matching the right animal to the right buyer. At some point, Lily realized she had not talked this openly with anyone since her father died. She had been so focused on survival, on proving herself, that she had forgotten what it felt like to simply be herself with another person. Harrison listened like her words mattered, asked questions that showed he was really hearing her. When she finally said she should get some sleep, she found herself reluctant to end the conversation. Lily, Harrison said as she started to move to her bedroll. What happened today that took real courage? I want you to know I see that. You were just as brave, she replied. Maybe, he allowed, but I did not have everything on the line. Those horses are your whole life. You could have walked away, tried to start over somewhere else. Instead you fought. That matters. Lily felt something warm bloom in her chest. Good night, Harrison. Good night, Lily. She lay in her bedroll staring up at the stars, thinking about the day, about the quiet cowboy who had stepped up when she needed help. She thought about his hands, strong and gentle at once. She thought about his voice, the way he said her name. Sleep was a long time coming. They reached Platteville late the next afternoon, driving the horses down the main street in a statement that could not be missed. People stopped to stare. Lily kept her head high, refusing to show the exhaustion that made her bones ache. Harrison rode beside her, and she was acutely aware of the impression they made, returning together with her recovered stock. At the trading post, they settled the horses back into their corrals. Lily checked the fence, noting that someone had already made rough repairs to where it had been cut. Mrs. Chen from the general store came over with a basket of food, and the news that Wade Sullivan had ridden through town earlier looking furious, but had not stopped to talk to anyone. Good riddance, Mrs. Chen said firmly. She looked at Harrison with sharp appraisal. You must be the cowboy who helped our Lily. The whole town is talking about it. Madam, Harrison said, tipping his hat politely. Are you staying for supper? Mrs. Chen asked, but she was looking at Lily. He should, Lily said before Harrison could decline. After everything he did, a meal is the least I can offer. Harrison met her eyes, and she saw the same awareness there that had been building between them. I would like that, he said. Mrs. Chen smiled knowingly and left them alone. Lily and Harrison finished the evening chores in comfortable silence. When they finally went inside the small house behind the trading post, Lily felt oddly nervous. She had been alone in this place for 3 years, and suddenly having Harrison's presence filling the space made everything feel different. She heated the food Mrs. Chen had brought, thick stew and fresh bread, while Harrison washed up at the pump outside. They ate at her small table, knees almost touching in the cramped space. Through the window, the last light was fading from the sky. "I should get back to the ranch," Harrison said eventually, though he made no move to stand. "They will be wondering where I have been. Will you get in trouble?" Lily asked, concerned. Harrison shrugged. "I will explain. Mr. McAllister is a fair man. He will understand. But he might not keep you on," Lily said, seeing the situation clearly. "You left without notice to help me." "Then I will find other work," Harrison said simply. "It was worth it." Lily made a decision that felt both reckless and absolutely right. "Work for me," she said. "I need help at the trading post. Someone to manage the stock, help with buying trips, handle the heavy work. I can pay $35 a month plus room and board. The cabin out back needs some fixing up, but it is sound." Harrison stared at her. "Lily, you do not have to do this out of gratitude." "I am not," she said firmly. "I am doing it because I need help and you are good at the work. I am doing it because we worked well together out there and I think we could build something here." She paused, then pushed ahead. "And I am doing it because I want you to stay." The words hung in the air between them, meaning more than just employment. Harrison's expression softened. "Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything," Lily said. Harrison reached across the table and took her hand. "Then I accept. I will ride out to the McAllister place tomorrow and collect my things." They sat like that for a long moment, hands joined, the future suddenly bright with possibilities neither had expected to find. The next weeks fell into a pattern that felt like something Lily had been missing without knowing it. Harrison proved to be everything she had hoped, skilled with horses, fair in his dealings, and tireless in his work. He repaired the cabin and moved his few possessions in, close enough to the main house that they saw each other constantly, but far enough for propriety. They worked side by side from dawn to dusk, and Lily found herself looking forward to each morning with an anticipation that had nothing to do with business. True to Lily's threat, Judge Morrison came through on his circuit. Lily filed a formal complaint about the theft, and Harrison backed her testimony. Wade Sullivan was called to answer and denied everything, but his hired guns had scattered, and without them he had no alibi for that night. The judge fined Sullivan $500 and issued a stern warning that any further trouble would result in jail time. Sullivan paid and left town 2 weeks later, selling his businesses at a loss. No one was sorry to see him go. With that threat removed, Lily's business flourished. Word spread about her recovery of the stolen stock, and instead of making her seem weak, the story enhanced her reputation. Here was a woman who fought for what was hers and won. Buyers came from farther away, and Lily's corrals were soon full of prime animals. Through it all, she and Harrison grew closer. It started with small things, the way he brought her coffee in the morning exactly how she liked it, the way she mended a tear in his shirt without being asked. Then larger things, the discussions about expanding the business, the shared laughter over supper, the moments when their hands would brush and neither would pull away. One evening in early autumn, after they had completed a successful buying trip into the mountains, they sat on the porch of the main house watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The air was cooling, carrying the scent of dry grass and distant pine. "Lily," Harrison said quietly, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, heart suddenly racing. "What is it?" "When I came to Platteville, I was not looking for anything except work and a place to rest for a while. I had given up on the idea of home, of belonging anywhere." He turned to face her fully. "But these past months working with you, building this business, they have shown me something I thought I had lost: purpose, partnership. I look forward to every day now because I know I will see you, talk with you, work beside you." Lily's throat tightened. "Harrison." "I am saying this badly," he continued, frustration and hope warring in his voice. What I mean is, somewhere along the way I fell in love with you, with your strength and your kindness, your quick mind and your stubborn courage. With the way you see the world and the way you make me want to be better than I am." He took her hand. "I know I am just a cowboy without much to my name, but if you would have me, I would count myself the luckiest man alive." Lily felt tears prick her eyes, but they were happy tears. "You think you are just a cowboy," she said, voice thick. "Harrison Fletcher, you are the man who stood beside me when everyone else would have looked away. You are the partner who helped me save everything I have. You are the person I trust more than anyone in the world." She squeezed his hand. "I love you too. I think I have since that first morning when you offered to help without asking anything in return." Harrison's smile was like sunrise, bright and warm and full of promise. He cupped her face gently in both hands. "May I kiss you?" "I was hoping you would," Lily whispered. The kiss was everything a first kiss should be, tender and passionate and full of unspoken promises. Lily felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "Marry me," Harrison said. "I know it is fast, but I cannot imagine my life without you in it anymore." "Yes," Lily said without hesitation. "Yes, absolutely yes." They were married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the church in Platteville. The whole town turned out, and even Sheriff Dawson showed up, looking sheepish now that his cousin was gone and he had no reason to be hostile. Mrs. Chen cried happy tears and insisted on hosting the reception at the general store. Someone produced a fiddle, and there was dancing in the street until late in the evening. Lily wore a dress of blue silk that had been her mother's, altered to fit her taller frame. Harrison wore his best suit, looking nervous and proud at once. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss they shared brought cheers from the assembled crowd. That night, in the house that was now truly theirs, they came together with a passion tempered by tenderness. Harrison was gentle, attentive, learning the map of Lily's body like he learned everything, with focus and care. Lily discovered that desire was not something to fear but something to celebrate, a joining that made two people into something greater than the sum of their parts. They fell asleep tangled together, and Lily woke in the night just to marvel at the fact that this man, this good and honest man, was hers now and she was his. The years that followed were not without challenges, but they were good years. The business continued to grow, and Harrison proved to have a gift for breeding horses. He started crossing Spanish Mustangs with draft breeds, creating animals with the endurance of range horses and the strength for heavy work. The Fletcher Winters strain, as they became known, commanded premium prices throughout Colorado and beyond. They built a proper house, larger than the original cabin, with a parlor for receiving customers and a big kitchen where Lily loved to cook. Harrison added a barn that was the envy of the county, with proper stalls and a tack room and a loft for storing hay. The corrals expanded to accommodate the growing stock, and they hired 2 hands to help with the work. In the spring of 1883, Lily discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. Her own mother had died when Lily was young, and she had no clear memories to guide her. But Harrison was solid as a rock, reading everything he could find about pregnancy and childbirth, making sure Lily rested when she needed to, taking on extra work without complaint. Their son was born in January of 1884, during a snowstorm that blanketed Platteville in white silence. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Lily thought she might not survive it. But Mrs. Chen, who had assisted at dozens of births, kept everyone calm and focused. When the baby finally emerged, squalling and red-faced, Lily felt a rush of love so intense it was almost painful. They named him William after Lily's father. He had Harrison's dark hair and Lily's green eyes, and from the moment he could toddle, he was following his father around the corrals, obsessed with the horses. Harrison proved to be a wonderful father, patient and playful, teaching William to be gentle with animals and respectful of the land. 2 years later, Lily gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl they named Thomas and Sarah. The house was suddenly full of noise and laughter, organized chaos that left both Lily and Harrison exhausted, and happier than they had ever imagined possible. They hired a girl from town to help with the children and the housework, giving Lily time to continue being involved in the business she loved. Through everything, the bond between Lily and Harrison only strengthened. They had their disagreements, of course, moments when tempers flared over business decisions or parenting approaches. But they had learned to talk through problems, to respect each other's opinions even when they differed. More importantly, they never lost sight of what had brought them together in the first place, that fundamental respect and partnership and love. On their 10th anniversary, Harrison surprised Lily with a trip, just the two of them, leaving the children with Mrs. Chen for a week. They rode into the high country, to a valley Harrison had discovered on one of his buying trips. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows in waves of blue and yellow, and elk grazed in the distance. They camped by a crystal stream, made love under the stars like they were young again, and talked about their dreams for the future. "I want to buy the old Morrison Ranch," Harrison said as they lay together watching the Milky Way wheel overhead. "It borders our north property, has good water and summer pasture. We could expand the breeding operation, really establish the bloodline." "That is a big investment," Lily said thoughtfully, "but I think we can do it. The business is solid and we have a reputation now. Banks will lend to us." "You think so?" Harrison asked. "I know so," Lily said firmly. "We have built something remarkable, Harrison, not just the business but our whole life. We took nothing and made everything. That is not going to stop now." Harrison pulled her closer. "How did I get so lucky?" "We got lucky," Lily corrected. "Both of us. The day those thieves stole my horses, I thought my life was ending. Instead, it was just beginning." They bought the Morrison Ranch the following year, financing it with a combination of savings and a loan from the Colorado Cattlemen's Bank. The expansion proved wise. By 1890, Fletcher Winters was the largest horse operation in the region, with stock selling as far away as Texas and Montana. They employed 8 full-time hands and a dozen more during busy seasons. The business had become an institution, a legacy to pass to their children. William showed every sign of taking over eventually. At 14, he could evaluate a horse as well as any adult, had his father's quiet way with animals and his mother's head for numbers. Thomas was more interested in the mechanical side of things, fascinated by the new farming equipment that was starting to appear, talking about tractors and combustion engines. Sarah had her mother's fierce independence and announced at age 10 that she was going to be a veterinarian. Never mind that most schools would not accept women. "She will find a way," Lily said when Harrison worried about Sarah's ambitions meeting harsh reality. "Look at what we did. The world is changing, and our daughter is going to be part of that change." As the century drew toward its close, Lily sometimes looked back on that morning in 1881 when she had stood in an empty corral and thought her world had ended. She thought about the quiet cowboy who had offered to help, asking nothing in return. She thought about the journey that had followed, the challenges faced and overcome, the love that had grown from crisis into something unshakable. "What are you thinking about?" Harrison asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch of their house, now gray-haired and weathered but still strong, watching the sunset paint familiar colors across familiar land. How it all started, Lily said. The theft, the chase, the recovery. How a disaster turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. Harrison took her hand, the gesture as natural now as breathing. I think about that too. How I was just drifting, not even sure what I was looking for. Then I saw you standing in that empty corral, and something in me said this mattered, that you mattered. I had no idea it would lead to all this. No regrets? Lily asked. Not a single one, Harrison said firmly. Only that we did not have more time, Lily said. But that is greedy, is it not? We have had so much. We still have plenty of time, Harrison reminded her. I plan on at least another 30 years of arguing with you about business and watching our grandchildren drive us crazy. Lily laughed. Grandchildren? William is only 17. Give him time, Harrison said with a grin. He has been making eyes at the Fletcher girl from town. Your fault for raising him with good taste. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. From the barn came the sound of horses settling for the night, a sound that had been the backdrop of their life together. Somewhere inside the house, Sarah was practicing piano while the boys argued over a checkers game. Normal, domestic, perfect. I love you, Lily said softly. As much now as that first day, maybe more. More, Harrison agreed. Definitely more. Love that grows is better than love that just stays the same. We have grown together, Lily. That is the real miracle. She leaned against him, his arm coming around her shoulders automatically. They watched the night deepen. Two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed, when they needed it most. The Wild West was fading, giving way to a new century with its own challenges and promises. But here, on this porch, with this man beside her, Lily felt nothing but gratitude and peace. The years continued to roll past, marked by the rhythm of seasons and the milestones of family life. William did indeed marry the Fletcher girl, Emma, in 1895. A wedding that filled the church and spilled out into the streets of Platteville, just as Lily and Harrison's had. The young couple took over more of the day-to-day operations of Fletcher Winters, allowing Harrison and Lily to step back slightly, though neither could fully retire from the work they loved. In 1897, Lily became a grandmother for the first time when Emma gave birth to a daughter named Lillian, after her grandmother. Holding that tiny baby, seeing her son's joy and Emma's exhausted pride, Lily understood in a new way the continuity of life, how love and work and sacrifice carried forward through generations. Thomas went east to study engineering at a technical college, coming back full of ideas about modernizing the ranch operations. Sarah fought her way into veterinary courses at Colorado Agricultural College, one of only 3 women in her class, and came home with knowledge that saved more than one valuable animal over the years. Through it all, Lily and Harrison remained the foundation. They were the ones the family turned to for advice, for conflict resolution, for the steady presence that said everything would work out. And mostly, it did. There were hard times, a drought year that stretched their resources thin, a fire that destroyed part of the barn, the death of Mrs. Chen, which hit both of them hard. But they weathered each storm together, their partnership grown only stronger with time. In 1901, Harrison fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. For 2 weeks, Lily barely left his side, dosing him with medicine, keeping him warm, refusing to accept that she might lose him. Sarah used her veterinary skills to provide nursing care that the overworked town doctor could not give. Harrison pulled through, though it left him weakened, moving slower than before. You are not allowed to die, Lily told him fiercely when he was finally well enough to sit up and take solid food. We made a deal for 30 more years, and I intend to hold you to it. Harrison smiled weakly. Yes, madam. Would not dream of breaking a promise to you. But the illness had been a warning. They were both in their mid-60s now, old by frontier standards. They began making concrete plans for the future, drawing up proper legal documents that transferred the business to William while ensuring Thomas and Sarah received fair portions. They wanted everything settled cleanly. No room for the kind of family disputes that tore apart so many ranches. "We built this together," Lily said as they signed the final papers. "I want our children to keep building it together. No fighting, no dividing it up, no selling out to strangers. This is our legacy." William, now a man of 34 with 2 children of his own, clasped both his parents' hands. "You have my word. This place will stay Fletcher Winters, and it will stay in the family. What you built means too much to treat it any other way." More grandchildren came, 8 in total by 1905, filling the house with noise during holidays and family gatherings. Harrison, recovered from his illness though never quite as strong as before, delighted in teaching the older ones to ride and judge horses. Lily organized the chaos with the same competence she had once brought to business, making sure everyone felt included and loved. On a clear day in June 1907, Lily and Harrison rode out together to the valley where they had celebrated their 10th anniversary. It had become their special place, visited once a year when weather permitted. Now 26 years married, they moved slower, but the joy of being together remained undimmed. They dismounted by the same stream, now shallow with early summer drought, and spread a blanket in the shade of an old cottonwood. The valley was unchanged, still carpeted with wildflowers, still home to elk and antelope, still a place where the modern world seemed distant and unimportant. "You remember what we talked about last time we were here?" Harrison asked, lying back with his hat over his eyes. "You wanted to buy the Morrison Ranch," Lily said, smiling at the memory. "We did that, and more." "We did," Harrison agreed. He lifted his hat to look at her. "Any regrets about how it all turned out?" Lily thought about the question seriously. "I wish we had been able to have more children," she said honestly. "I would have liked a big family, and I wish my father had lived to see what we built to know his grandchildren." "But regrets about us?" Harrison pressed. "None," Lily said firmly. "Not a single moment. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Harrison Fletcher. Every day with you has been a gift." Harrison sat up and pulled her close. They had kissed thousands of times over the years, but this one felt important somehow, weighted with all the love and history between them. When they pulled apart, Harrison's eyes were suspiciously bright. "What is it?" Lily asked, concerned. "Just happy," Harrison said gruffly. "Just thinking how lucky I am. How that scared cowboy who offered to help track stolen horses ended up with everything he did not even know he wanted." "We were both lucky," Lily reminded him, "and brave, and willing to work for what we wanted. Luck only goes so far, the rest was us." They spent the afternoon in that valley, talking and dozing and simply being together. As the sun began to lower, they reluctantly packed up and headed home. The ride back seemed longer than Lily remembered, and she noticed Harrison was favoring his left side, though he denied any discomfort when she asked. The following years were peaceful ones. Harrison's health stabilized, and though he no longer did heavy work, his mind remained sharp and his advice valuable. Lily, blessed with her father's constitution, stayed active well into her 70s, still keeping the books and making decisions about major purchases. The business continued to thrive under William's management, adapting to changing times while maintaining the quality and integrity that had always been its hallmark. In 1912, Lily and Harrison celebrated their 31st anniversary quietly, just the two of them and a few close friends. The big party would come at 35, they decided, assuming they both made it that far. But privately, alone in their bedroom that night, they acknowledged the milestone. 31 years, Lily said wonderingly. More than half my life with you. Best half, Harrison said, pulling her into his arms. Age had marked them both, left its evidence in gray hair and lined faces and joints that ached on cold mornings. But the fundamental connection between them remained unchanged. When Harrison kissed her, Lily still felt that spark that had first ignited on a porch in Platteville over 3 decades ago. They made love slowly, gently, a reaffirmation of bonds that needed no proving but cherished the reminder nonetheless. Afterward, Lily lay with her head on Harrison's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and felt profoundly grateful for the life they had built. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Harrison asked sleepily. "For everything. For that first morning when you offered to help. For every day since. For being the man I needed and the partner I wanted. For our children and this life and all of it." Harrison's arms tightened around her. "The thanks go both ways, love. You made me whole when I did not even know I was broken. You gave me a home and a purpose, and a reason to wake up grateful every morning. If I could go back and choose any life, I would choose this one exactly as it was." They drifted to sleep like that, wrapped around each other, 2 lives so thoroughly intertwined that neither could imagine existing separately. Harrison Fletcher died peacefully in his sleep in October of 1914, at the age of 72. He went to bed after a good day, ate supper with Lily and told her a joke that made her laugh, kissed her good night, and simply did not wake in the morning. The doctor said his heart had given out, quick and painless, the best way to go. Lily felt like half of herself had been torn away. The grief was enormous, crushing, a physical pain that made breathing difficult. But she was surrounded by love, by children and grandchildren who held her up through those first terrible days. They buried Harrison on a hillside overlooking the ranch, with a view of the mountains he had loved. The whole county turned out for the funeral, testament to the respect he had earned. In the days and weeks that followed, Lily moved through a fog of loss. Everything reminded her of Harrison. His coffee cup on the counter, his coat hanging by the door, the indent in his side of the bed. She found herself turning to tell him something, only to remember with fresh grief that he was gone. But Lily was not the type to give up, even in the face of devastating loss. Slowly, gradually, she found her footing again. She threw herself into the business, offering advice to William, who was grateful for her continued involvement. She spent time with her grandchildren, telling them stories about their grandfather, making sure they knew what kind of man he had been. She visited that valley one last time alone, and said a private goodbye to the place that had meant so much to both of them. Lily Winters Fletcher lived another 5 years, dying in 1919 at the age of 77. She remained sharp and engaged until the end, attending a suffragist rally just weeks before her death, insisting that women's right to vote was long overdue. Her children and grandchildren were with her when she passed, slipping away quietly in her sleep much as Harrison had. They buried her beside her husband on that hillside, their names carved into matching stones. Lily Margaret Winters Fletcher and Harrison Thomas Fletcher, together in death as they had been in life. Below their names and dates, the family added a single line that seemed to sum up everything: partners in all things. The Fletcher Winters Ranch continued for generations, always run by descendants of that cowboy and horse trader who had found each other in crisis and built something lasting. The story of the stolen horses and the recovery became family legend, told and retold to children who grew up in a different world but needed to understand where they came from. The valley where Lily and Harrison had celebrated their love became a family tradition. Each generation visited it, courting couples and old married folks and everyone in between, keeping alive the memory of two people who had proven that love and partnership could overcome any obstacle. And on quiet evenings when the wind blew just right across that hillside, locals swore you could hear laughter, a man's deep chuckle and a woman's warm reply, the sound of two souls who had found each other against all odds and refused to let anything, even death, truly separate them. The Wild West had been their proving ground, the stolen horses their unlikely beginning, but the love they built together was their true legacy, lasting long after the frontier was tamed and the world moved on to new challenges and new stories. In Platteville, Colorado, the Fletcher Winters name remained synonymous with quality and integrity well into the 20th century and beyond. The business eventually adapted to changing times, transitioning from horses to cattle and then to other ventures, but always maintaining the principles Lilly and Harrison had established: fair dealing, hard work, and respect for both animals and people. Sarah Fletcher, the daughter who had fought to become a veterinarian, went on to found a clinic that served ranchers throughout the region. She never married, dedicating her life to her practice and to proving that women belonged in professional fields. When she died in 1962 at the age of 84, the Colorado Veterinary Association established a scholarship in her name. Thomas Fletcher, the mechanically minded son, became an early advocate for agricultural modernization. He helped introduce tractors and other machinery to Colorado ranchers, always crediting his parents' willingness to adapt and innovate as his inspiration. He married late, at 40, and had two sons who carried the Fletcher name into new industries. But it was William Fletcher who perhaps best embodied his parents' legacy. He ran Fletcher Winters for 43 years, from 1901 until his retirement in 1944. Under his stewardship, the ranch weathered the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and countless personal and professional challenges. He treated his employees fairly, gave back to the community, and passed on to his own children the values Lilly and Harrison had instilled in him. William lived to see his grandson, Harrison William Fletcher, take over the operation in 1950. The younger Harrison, named for his great-grandfather, was the first in the family to attend university, studying agricultural business and bringing back modern management techniques. But he never forgot the stories his grandfather told him about a cowboy who had helped a horse trader recover her stolen stock and found love in the process. "Everything we have," William told young Harrison on the day he officially transferred control of the business, "started with courage and partnership. Your great-grandparents lost everything and fought to get it back. They built this from nothing and they did it together. Never forget that." Success is not about being the smartest or the toughest. It is about finding people you trust and working together towards something bigger than yourself. Those words guided Harrison William Fletcher as he navigated the challenges of modern ranching. When he faced his own crisis in the drought years of the 1950s, he remembered the story of the stolen horses and refused to give up. When he married his wife, Martha, he consciously built a partnership based on equality and mutual respect, modeling what his great-grandparents had shown was possible. The cycles continued, generations rising and falling, each adding their own chapter to the family story but always anchored by that original tale. The cowboy and the horse trader, the theft and the recovery, the partnership that became a marriage, the marriage that became a legacy. By the turn of the 21st century, Platteville had grown from a dusty frontier town into a suburban community, part of the expanding Front Range urban corridor. The Fletcher Winters Ranch, or what remained of it, was now surrounded by housing developments and shopping centers. but a portion of the original property had been preserved as open space, a reminder of Colorado's ranching heritage. On that preserved land stood a historical marker telling the story of Lily Winters and Harrison Fletcher. Local schoolchildren visited on field trips, learning about frontier life and the people who had built the community. The marker emphasized Lily's role as a female business owner in the 1880s, highlighting her as a pioneer not just of the West but of women's economic independence. And on that hillside where two simple headstones marked the final resting place of Lily and Harrison Fletcher, wildflowers still bloomed each spring, their colors as vivid as they had been over a century ago, when a young couple had ridden into a remote valley and dreamed of the future. Descendants still visited, some from nearby, others traveling across the country, drawn by the need to connect with the source of their family story. An elderly woman stood at those graves one summer afternoon in 2006, her hand resting on the sun-warmed stone. She was Harrison William Fletcher's daughter, which made her Lily and Harrison's great-great-granddaughter. She had brought her own granddaughter, a girl of 15 who looked bored until her great-grandmother began to speak. They met on the worst day of her life, the old woman said, her voice carrying traces of a lifetime spent in Colorado. She lost everything, and he helped her get it back. But the real story is not about horses or thieves. It is about two people who saw in each other exactly what they needed and had the courage to reach for it. The girl looked at the weathered stones with new interest. Was it romantic? Like in movies, her great-grandmother smiled. Better than movies because it was real. Real people with real problems, building a real life together. They had fights and struggles and probably annoyed each other sometimes. But they chose each other every day for more than 30 years. That is the real romance, the choosing. They stood in silence for a moment, 3 generations of women connected by blood to a story that had started with stolen horses and a cowboy's offer to help. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and summer heat, timeless and familiar. "Will you tell me the whole story?" the girl asked. "From the beginning," the old woman smiled. "I will do better than that. I will show you the journal your great-great-great-grandmother kept, her own words telling you what happened and how she felt. You should know where you come from, understand the strength you carry in your blood." As they walked back to the car, the old woman began to talk, weaving together history and memory, facts and family legend. Behind them, the sun lowered toward the mountains, painting the sky in the same golds and purples that had amazed Lily Winters the first time she rode into this country. The land endured. The story endured. And somewhere in the fabric of the world, the love between a horse trader and a cowboy endured too, proof that the best things in life are worth fighting for, and that partnership built on respect and trust can weather any storm. The Wild West was gone, tamed by time and progress. But its lessons remained, carried forward by those who chose to remember. Courage in the face of loss, partnership over pride, love that grows stronger through challenge rather than weakening. These were not just historical footnotes but living principles, as relevant now as they had been in 1881, when a woman stood in an empty corral and a cowboy offered to help. And so the story of Lily Winters and Harrison Fletcher lived on, told and retold, adapted and embellished, but at its core remaining true to the fundamental truth. That sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes, that help often comes from unexpected sources, and that love, real love, is built not in grand gestures but in the daily choice to stand beside someone and face whatever comes together. In the end, they had saved more than horses. They had saved each other and in doing so built something that lasted far beyond their individual lives. a legacy of partnership, integrity, and enduring love that would carry forward as long as there were descendants to tell the tale and hearts to understand its meaning. The Wild West faded into memory, but the love story endured, a testament to the power of two people who refused to let circumstances define them, and instead chose to define themselves through courage, partnership, and an unshakable commitment to each other and the life they built together. In a time and place where life was hard and uncertain, Lily Winters and Harrison Fletcher proved that with the right partner, anything was possible, and that the greatest adventure of all was finding someone to share the journey with, through stolen horses and recovered dreams, through building and growing and loving, until death and beyond. Their story was complete, a circle closed, a life well lived and a love well earned. And in the hearts of those who heard their tale, something stirred, a recognition that this was what life was meant to be. Not easy but worth it, not simple but profound, not given but fought for and cherished and passed down through the generations as proof that even in the hardest times, love could triumph, partnership could endure, and two people willing to stand together could overcome anything the world threw at them. The sun set over Colorado as it had for millions of years before Lily and Harrison walked this earth and would for millions after. But for a brief, shining moment in the grand sweep of time, they had been here, had loved and worked and built something meaningful. And that, in the end, was enough. More than enough. It was everything,